Hello viewers, my name is Snes and today I'm going to tell you about my video game collection. First, I'm going to talk about all the consoles I own. Journey into the Snes lair. First is my NES that barely works. Here's the Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis, the GameCube, and the Nintendo Wii. On portables there's the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS. You're seeing Chrono Trigger on it right now. But my favorite system is the Super Nintendo. That's why they call me Snes Man. In fact, I've got plenty of Super Nintendo games, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about.
Snes Man is the champion, he's 16-bit.
So let's break it down and I'll show you all the different categories. Let's start with platformers. First, Super Mario All-Stars, a must-have for all Mario fans. Kirby Superstar, a collection of Kirby games. Castlevania 4, an adventure with Dracula. Super Adventure Island, a kind of awkward caveman adventure. And now, Mega Man X, a classic, one of my favorite video games for the Super Nintendo. The Lost Vikings, a fun little puzzle adventure game with some good humor thrown in. Aladdin, a fun Disney epic. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, one of the hardest games on the console, it's brutal. The Lion King, another Disney game I wasn't too fond of. And, speaking of Disney, Toy Story. Then, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, a classic. And Super Mario World the original, one of my favorites. Now here's a horrid game, Home Alone 2. Everyone knows this one sucks if they've played it. And of course, Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3, classic games. Another trilogy I have is the Star Wars trilogy. We have Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and Super Return of the Jedi. And Aero the Acrobat. I thought this one was pretty bad. Then we have Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge. If you've seen my review, you know I didn't like this one. Now for adventures and RPGs. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is not an RPG, but it's a great classic, one of the greatest games on the system. Super Metroid, an epic adventure with some dramatic shootouts and some dramatic encounters. ActRaiser, part sim, part adventure. I'd recommend it to most people. Brainlord, a clumsy RPG that I completely bashed in my review and got lots of flaming from fans. Super Godzilla, the first game I ever reviewed on Snes Man. I think it's a pretty good game even though lots of people hate it. Wise 3, Wanderer from Wise, or Yeez, I don't know how you say it. This wasn't not that great of a game. It's way too hard. Wizardry 5, this is a really confusing primitive RPG and I'm not a big fan of it. But you want to hear about good RPGs, right? Let's move on to the good ones. Here are some of the good RPGs I have. First is Final Fantasy II or 4 in Japan. It's a great game that set the standard for the series. Even better is Final Fantasy III or 6 in Japan. The drama is great, the story is great, it's just perfect. Also, I beat this, but it was quite a challenge. Then we have Super Mario RPG. This one's a great game too. It's a little easier than the RPGs, so it's easier to get into. Then, Secret of Mana. I think this one's great, though I don't quite think it's as great as everyone else does. I think it's a little clunky, but still, great game. Here are some puzzles and casual games. Wario's Woods. This one's just a standard puzzle game. Mario Paint. A really fun paint program that's good for little kids. It was a lot of entertainment for me when I was younger. Frogger. As you might have heard in my review earlier, this is not a very good port of the game. It's really lame. Super Bomberman 2. I don't have the first one yet, but the second one is a blast. The multiplayer's tons of fun. Tetris and Dr. Mario. I'm not a puzzle fan, but I still love the Dr. Mario mode. Now we have shooting games, most of them scrolling shooters. The first one, however, is Super Scope 6 for the Super Scope accessory. Pretty standard game. Next, Contra 3, The Alien Wars. This is one of Konami's greatest achievements. Yoshi's Safari, a game not many people have played because you need the Super Scope. Still, it's a good game, minor flaws but fun. Super Smash TV, a wild mayhem game, but still fun when you need diversion. Metal Combat, Falcon's Revenge. This one's pretty fun, standard Super Scope action. Jurassic Park, this one's hardly a shooter because only part of the game is shooter. The rest is more of an adventure. Still, it's not that great of a game. Now, Sunset Riders. This game's epic, it's like Contra in the Wild West. UN Squadron, brutal fighter plane action, very high difficulty but very high fun. Now for fighting games. Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2. The first one I thought was really primitive and lame, but the second one was quite a good game. Justice League Task Force. This game is just for laughs. It's a really bad Street Fighter clone with all your favorite superheroes. Primal Rage. Tons of people go on how much they hate this game, but this game is my childhood. I loved it. Street Fighter 2, the very original slow version. And Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which was a lot better, I thought. You know what was an underrated one, though? Street Fighter Alpha 2. This one might have had some slowdown and port issues, but it was really cool, I thought. Another laughable fighter, Power Rangers Fighting Edition. This one's really lame. Fatal Fury 2. Good ol' primitive action. World Heroes 2. A pretty standard game, but with a good cast of characters. Killer Instinct. Great black cartridge, also great fighting game. Back when Rare was a good company. This game freaking rocks. This blank cartridge was a hideous wrestling game that I got for free from a game store that wanted me to try it out. It's hideous. Now beat 'em up games. First is Super Double Dragon. Underrated, this is a pretty good game. Battletoads and Double Dragon. I didn't like this one as much. Too simplistic. Turtles in Time. This is my favorite beat 'em up of all time. So fun. Then Batman Returns. Probably the best Batman game on the Snes. Still, it has some minor flaws. X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. Typical game, good graphics, fun. Batman Forever. Possibly the worst in my entire collection. Horrible game, utter trash. Next, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You'd be surprised this isn't a bad game. It's made for kids so it plays well. Finally, I'd like to show you some games I couldn't find a category for. Star Fox. I can't help but compare this to the better 64 version, but it always happens when I put it in. The graphics were good for their time, but now they're dated, and the game is also dated in gameplay. Next, we have Super Mario Kart. Though it may seem simple nowadays, this is still a classic, I think, and everyone wants to play battle mode still. Super Battle Tank. I thought this game would be a lot like Battle Tanks for 64, but it's not close, it's just a Gulf War simulator. Not very good. Also, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, a bizarre but fun title. And last game of my collection, Super Punch-Out! Classic game, I love it. Thanks for watching. This has been Snes Man's Collection. Give me any comments if you approve of the games I have, or if you'd like to suggest any more I should get. Keep in mind, though, that I'm getting new games all the time to review. Lots of these new ones are brand new for me, in fact. Well, thanks for watching. This is Snes Man, and I'll talk to you again sometime soon.